February 15th, McMurdo Station, Antarctica. The last transport aircraft lifts off from the ice runway, carrying the final group of summer personnel back to civilization. In 8 hours, the sun will set for the last time until August. For the next 8 months, 40 to 150 people will remain completely cut off from the outside world. No flights, no mail, no medical evacuation, no fresh supplies. The temperature will drop to minus 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The darkness will be absolute. Antarctic programs have refined winter-over operations for decades, but the question is what this survival costs the human body and mind, and how far people will go to gather data from the bottom of the world. Chapter 1. The Siege begins. The physics of polar night don't gradually ease you into darkness. At coastal stations like McMurdo, the sun disappears for 4 months. At Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, positioned at 90 degrees south latitude, the sun sets in late March and doesn't rise again until late September, nearly 6 months of continuous night. The transition happens with mathematical precision. One day, there's civil twilight, enough indirect light for outdoor work around noon. The next day, astronomical darkness begins, and the only natural illumination comes from stars, moon phases, and the aurora australis. The cold follows immediately. Winter temperatures at the South Pole regularly drop below minus 73 degrees Celsius. The record low at Vostok Station reached minus 89.2 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze carbon dioxide out of the air. At these temperatures, exhaled breath instantly crystallizes into clouds of ice particles that locals call diamond dust. The snow underfoot squeaks with a distinctive high-pitched crunch. Metal becomes brittle. Diesel fuel turns to gel unless continuously heated. No aircraft can operate in these conditions. Commercial and military planes require hydraulic fluids that would freeze solid and visual flight rules that depend on daylight. The ice runway becomes unusable. This creates the central reality of winter over life: complete isolation. The crew that remains in February must survive entirely on their own resources until the first flight returns in late October or early November. 8 to 9 months with no way in and no way out. The implications hit immediately. The station doctor becomes the entire medical system, equipped to handle everything from appendicitis to heart attacks to psychiatric emergencies. Equipment failures must be repaired with available parts, or the crew goes without. Food supplies are finite and carefully rationed. The mental shift from supported operations to total self-reliance happens overnight. Chapter 2. The Light Wars. The human body evolved over millions of years to follow the 24-hour cycle of sunrise and sunset. Remove that primary environmental cue, and biological systems begin to malfunction within days. Sleep becomes erratic. Winterers report lying awake for hours, then falling asleep at random times during their work shifts. The brain struggles to maintain its internal clock without external reference points. Antarctic stations fight back with technology. Modern facilities install circadian lighting systems throughout common areas and corridors. These automated systems shift light color and intensity throughout an artificial day. Bright, blue-white light in the artificial morning to promote alertness, gradually warming to amber tones in the artificial evening to encourage melatonin production. The lights follow a programmed 24-hour cycle that substitutes for the missing sun. Individual crew members supplement station lighting with personal light therapy devices. These light boxes emit 10,000 lux of full-spectrum light, roughly equivalent to standing outside on a clear spring morning. Winterers typically use them for 20 to 30 minutes immediately after waking, sitting close enough that the light hits their retinas at the correct angle and intensity to reset their circadian rhythms. The battle isn't just technological. Crew schedules become rigid frameworks for imposing artificial time structure. Work happens Monday through Saturday, 9 to 5, regardless of what the darkness outside suggests. Sunday remains a day off. Meals occur at fixed times. Social activities follow predictable patterns. Every routine becomes a small victory against the biological chaos that polar night creates. Even with these countermeasures, sleep disturbances persist throughout the winter. Many winterers report vivid, bizarre dreams when they do manage to sleep. Others shift their sleep cycles entirely, becoming nocturnal in an environment where night never ends. The body never fully accepts the artificial time cues, creating a state of constant, low-grade physiological stress. Chapter 3. Feeding the machine. Fresh food disappears first. The vegetables and fruits that arrive on the last February flights, known universally as freshies, become precious commodities consumed within weeks. Crew members savor the last fresh apple, the final salad, the closing of the fresh produce era. These moments mark the transition from connection to isolation as tangibly as the departure of the last aircraft. The diet shifts to frozen meats, canned vegetables, and dry staples that can survive months in storage. The station cook becomes one of the most psychologically important crew members, responsible for creating variety and flavor from monotonous ingredients. A skilled cook can transform repetitive supplies into anticipated meals that give structure and pleasure to otherwise identical days. Food takes on social significance beyond nutrition. Communal meals in the station galley become the primary gathering point for the isolated community. Conversations happen over breakfast, information spreads during lunch, and dinner becomes the day's main social event. The dining schedule imposes shared rhythm on a group that might otherwise fragment into individual survival modes. Larger stations maintain hydroponic greenhouses that serve purposes far beyond supplementing the diet. These climate-controlled spaces provide warmth, humidity, the smell of soil and growing plants, and vibrant green colors that contrast sharply with the sterile station interiors and monochrome landscape outside. Crew members volunteer for greenhouse duty not just to tend lettuce and tomatoes, but to experience sensory relief from the artificial environment that otherwise surrounds them. The greenhouse becomes a psychological sanctuary. The humidity feels different on skin, accustomed to bone-dry heated air. The earth smells trigger memories of spring and growth and life continuing somewhere beyond the ice. The green leaves and developing vegetables provide visual proof that biological processes can continue even in this suspended world. Working in the greenhouse offers a temporary escape from the reality of isolation. Chapter 4. When biology fails, the human brain doesn't adapt quietly to months of artificial light and social isolation. Within weeks of the last sunset, crew members begin reporting what they call Antarctic brain, a noticeable decline in cognitive function that affects memory, concentration, and problem-solving ability. Simple tasks become difficult. Winterers forget common words mid-sentence, walk into rooms and forget why they came, and struggle with calculations they could normally complete automatically. This cognitive decline has a measurable physiological basis. Extended periods in the extreme Antarctic environment cause the hippocampus, the brain region responsible for memory formation and spatial navigation, to physically shrink. Simultaneously, the body reduces production of thyroid-stimulating hormone, leading to decreased levels of the thyroid hormone T3. This condition, known as polar T3 syndrome, manifests as persistent fatigue, cognitive impairment, and mood disturbances. The brain is essentially conserving energy in response to an environment it perceives as unsurvivable. The body redirects resources away from higher cognitive functions toward basic survival systems. This biological response makes sense from an evolutionary perspective. Complex thinking becomes a luxury when facing extreme environmental stress, but it creates serious challenges for people trying to maintain sophisticated scientific operations and complex social relationships. Sleep disruption compounds the cognitive effects. Without natural light cues, many winterers develop severe insomnia, lying awake for hours despite physical exhaustion. Others experience hypersomnia, sleeping excessively, but never feeling rested. Sleep cycles shift unpredictably. The quality of sleep deteriorates even when quantity seems adequate. This chronic sleep deprivation amplifies every other psychological and physiological stress the environment creates. Physical symptoms accompany the mental changes. Winterers report persistent headaches, joint stiffness, and general malaise that seems unrelated to any specific illness. The body's inflammatory responses increase. Immune function becomes compromised. Minor injuries heal more slowly. The entire biological system operates under stress that would be temporary in most environments, but becomes a constant baseline condition during the Antarctic winter. Chapter 5. The social equation. 40 to 150 people, depending on the station, must work together, eat together, and socialize together every single day for 8 months. There is no privacy beyond individual sleeping quarters, no escape from interpersonal conflicts, no way to avoid someone who irritates you or to bring in new social energy when existing relationships become strained. The social mathematics are unforgiving. In a community of 50 people, every conversation is potentially overheard by the same small group. Reputations form quickly and become difficult to change. Personal habits that might be tolerable in normal social settings, leaving dishes unwashed, playing music too loudly, dominating conversations, become sources of mounting frustration when repeated daily with no relief. Structured work schedules provide an essential social framework. The Monday through Saturday routine creates predictable interactions focused on shared tasks rather than forced socializing. People have defined roles and responsibilities that give purpose to their daily contact. The work structure prevents the community from becoming an aimless social experiment and maintains professional relationships that can survive personal tensions. Conflict resolution becomes a critical survival skill. Station managers and medical personnel receive specific training in mediating disputes before deployment. They understand that unresolved interpersonal problems can poison the atmosphere for the entire crew, potentially threatening mission success and individual mental health. Small conflicts must be addressed quickly before they escalate into larger problems that could destabilize the community. The social environment creates what researchers call the Big I, a situation where everyone knows everyone else's business. Privacy becomes a luxury that exists only in individual sleeping quarters. Personal relationships, work performance, health issues, and behavioral changes become community knowledge, whether individuals want to share that information or not. This constant visibility adds psychological pressure to an already stressful environment. Chapter 6. Breaking points and breakthroughs. 3/4 of the way through the isolation period, winterers face a predictable psychological crisis known as the third quarter phenomenon. This pattern occurs consistently across isolated groups, from submarine crews to space station astronauts to Antarctic winter-over teams. The initial excitement of the mission has faded. The novelty has worn off. The end remains too distant to provide motivation. The monotony of routine becomes oppressive. Symptoms emerge predictably around month 6. Depression increases, irritability spikes. Interpersonal conflicts that were manageable earlier in the winter now escalate into serious disputes. Crew members become withdrawn or passive-aggressive. Small annoyances that were previously tolerated become triggers for major arguments. The social fabric of the community faces its greatest test. This crisis period coincides with the deepest point of the Antarctic winter. Outside, temperatures reach their most extreme levels. The darkness feels most absolute. The isolation seems most complete. The combination of external environmental stress and internal psychological pressure creates conditions where individuals and communities can break down entirely. Successful winter-over crews have developed strategies to survive this predictable crisis. They create artificial milestones and celebrations that provide psychological waypoints through the darkness. The most important is the midwinter dinner, held on or around the winter solstice in June. This celebration combines elements of Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's Eve. Crew members dress formally or in costumes. The cook prepares an elaborate multi-course feast. Messages of greeting are exchanged with every other overwintering station on the continent. The solstice represents the psychological halfway point. The days will start getting longer, even though the sun won't be visible for months. This mathematical reality provides hope that transcends the immediate experience of darkness and cold. The celebration acknowledges how far the crew has come and marks the beginning of the return toward light and eventual reconnection with the outside world. Some traditions push physical and psychological boundaries deliberately. The 300 Club at the South Pole requires members to wait for temperatures below -73 degrees Celsius, spend time in a sauna heated to +93 degrees Celsius, then run naked except for boots from the sauna to the geographic South Pole marker and back. The total temperature differential exceeds 300 degrees Fahrenheit. This brief, extreme challenge serves as a communal act of defiance against the environment. Chapter 7. The Science That Justifies It All. The harsh conditions that make Antarctic winter over so psychologically and physically demanding also create unique scientific opportunities that exist nowhere else on Earth. The clear, dry, stable atmosphere and months of continuous darkness make the Antarctic Plateau the best terrestrial location for certain types of astronomical observation. Telescopes like the South Pole Telescope and the BICEP Array study the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, and investigate fundamental questions about dark matter and dark energy. The winter darkness eliminates interference from sunlight that would compromise sensitive observations. The extremely dry air minimizes atmospheric distortion. The stable conditions allow for extended observation periods, impossible at other locations. The isolation that creates such hardship for human crews creates perfect conditions for detecting radiation that has traveled across the universe for billions of years. Climate research benefits equally from the extreme conditions. Antarctica provides the most pristine atmospheric baseline measurements available on Earth. Air samples collected during winter contain minimal local contamination, offering accurate readings of global carbon dioxide levels and other atmospheric gases. Seismographs positioned on the stable Antarctic continental plate can detect earthquakes worldwide with exceptional clarity. Atmospheric research takes advantage of the polar night to study phenomena like the aurora australis without solar interference. Scientists monitor the ozone hole, which reaches its maximum extent during the Antarctic spring as the sun returns and triggers photochemical reactions in the stratosphere. This research directly informs global understanding of climate change and atmospheric chemistry. The sense of contributing to fundamental scientific knowledge provides psychological sustenance that helps winterers endure the isolation and hardship. Knowing that their presence enables discoveries about the origin of the universe, the future of Earth's climate, and the basic functioning of our planet gives meaning to the personal sacrifice required for winter over duty. Chapter 8. Systems Recovery. The first sunrise after months of darkness triggers powerful psychological and physiological responses. Winterers describe the moment with language usually reserved for religious experiences. Overwhelming relief, joy, and a sense of restoration that goes beyond simple pleasure at seeing light. The event often draws the entire station population outdoors despite extremely cold temperatures, creating a shared ritual of emergence from the long night. The return of natural light begins the process of biological recovery. Circadian rhythms slowly realign with solar cues. Sleep patterns gradually normalize, though the adjustment can take weeks or months. Cognitive function begins to improve as the hippocampus recovers from its extended stress response, and thyroid hormone production increases toward normal levels. Psychological recovery follows a similar trajectory. The third quarter crisis typically resolves as the return of light provides tangible evidence that the isolation period is ending. Social tensions often ease as crew members anticipate eventual reunion with family and friends. The community that has been under pressure for months begins to relax as external validation approaches. Preparation for the first incoming flights creates renewed purpose and energy. Runways must be cleared and maintained. Equipment must be prepared for the arrival of new personnel and supplies. Scientific instruments require calibration and data downloads for the new season. The station transforms from a closed survival system back into a connection point with the outside world. The psychological transition can be as challenging as the initial adaptation to isolation. Winterers have spent months adapting to a small, controlled community with predictable routines and limited stimulation. The prospect of returning to complex social environments, varied schedules, and constant connectivity can create anxiety rather than simple anticipation. Many winterers report that the experience fundamentally changes their perspective on privacy, community, and human resilience. Living in extreme proximity with a small group for months creates bonds and insights that don't exist in normal social circumstances. The enforced simplicity of winter over life, limited possessions, basic entertainment, focus on essential tasks, often leads to lasting changes in priorities and lifestyle choices. The Antarctic winter over reveals human adaptability at its most extreme. Crews not only survive, but maintain complex scientific operations in conditions that should overwhelm our biological and psychological systems. They manufacture artificial environments, engineer social structures, and create meaning sufficient to sustain sophisticated human civilization at the bottom of the world. The cost is real and measurable. Cognitive decline, sleep disruption, social stress, and physiological changes mark every person who completes a winter-over assignment. But the willingness to pay this cost generates knowledge that benefits everyone, from fundamental physics discoveries to climate data that informs global policy decisions. These researchers demonstrate that human beings can systematically adapt to almost any environment, but only through careful engineering of every system that supports life and sanity. Their success depends not on individual heroism, but on a collective commitment to a shared purpose and mutual survival. The lights they keep burning through the polar night illuminate more than just their isolated stations. They represent humanity's determination to understand our universe and our planet, regardless of the personal sacrifice required. In the world's most hostile workplace, they prove that knowledge can justify almost any hardship and that human communities can endure almost any isolation when bound together by meaningful work.